Okay, so let's talk today about weight training, strength training, resistance training. As always, I'll start with cons. So probably the biggest risk, particularly with weight training, as in using dumbbells, lumps of heavy iron, so on and so forth. Biggest risk is probably going to be injury or accident. So injury can happen through using poor form to perform your lifts or movements, or by not warming up adequately. And so if we're going to do big heavy movements, it's really, really important that we prime our body ready for that. So people oversimplify a warm-up and think it's literally just to get you warm, to get you a bit sweaty. It's not. It's about priming your body ready for exercise. So we talked previously about synovial joints and synovial fluid, how it's like the oil in a car where it starts off quite thick and quite sticky, and as it warms up, as we get it moving, it actually thins down and moves around the joint a lot better to lubricate and coat the joint. So those are things like knees, ankles, elbows, shoulders. They're all synovial joints with synovial fluid that needs warming up. Also, the muscles need to be warmed up, tendons need to be warmed up. If you think about an elastic band, and if you were to put that in the freezer for half an hour and then pull it, it would be much more inclined to just snap because it would be cold and it would be brittle. If it's warm, and even if you left it out in the sun for a while, it would then become quite sticky and gooey and really kind of stretch quite a lot. That's what happens with our muscles, with our tendons, with our ligaments. Yeah, so we warm them up, they'll move a lot better, and that will prevent or help to prevent injuries from happening. Accidents happen in the gym. Literally dropping a dumbbell on your foot, dropping a heavy weight on your foot. I must admit I've done it a few times, luckily not from any great height, but even from very low heights, dropping something heavy like that on your foot hurts. So make sure if you are using heavy weights, use appropriate footwear as well, that's quite important. I have a tendency for liking to work out in bare feet, but definitely if I'm lifting weights, the shoes go on for sure. What else? If you're lifting really, really heavy, then you may need a spotter, so someone who's there with you and that can make sure if you get into any trouble, they can take the weight off of you and they can help you out of any sticky situations. And that's one of the reasons that I actually employ a personal trainer myself, because I lift quite heavy weights, particularly if you're doing bench presses where you're laying down and lifting a weight up there. It can be quite dangerous if you get yourself trapped under that weight. Now obviously as a personal trainer I know that we have spotter bars on the edge of the squat rack that we can set to a height that means we don't literally get completely crushed, but we can still end up in a situation where we might be a little bit trapped. So definitely if you're lifting really, really heavy, have a spotter on hand, or if you're in a gym, you may be better off to use a machine where it's a little bit easier to get yourself out of trouble. It can be a risk if you have high blood pressure, particularly if you're going to maximum efforts. So probably if you've got high blood pressure, it'd be better to come a little bit lower in your weights that you're using and go for a higher rep range, so a little bit lighter, do a little bit more of it. The risk can be if we're doing really, really heavy weights, there's a thing called the Valsalva technique, or Valsalva maneuver, and you'll see weightlifters in competitions doing this when they're lifting overhead and things like that, and doing their deadlifts, and it's where they actually hold their breath. They're trained in the technique and they do it because it helps to stabilise their core and make them stronger for that lift. If you have high blood pressure, holding your breath like that under pressure can actually send, or it does send your blood pressure up through the roof, and if it's high already, that can obviously then cause risks. So not recommended if you have high blood pressure. It can create muscle imbalances, and this is something that you tend to see particularly with men, and they tend to work on what they call the mirror muscles. So when they're in the gym and they're going, look at me, yeah, look at my chest muscles, and they literally are working on the muscles that they can see in the mirror. So they'll be working their biceps and they'll forget to work out their triceps. They'll work out their chest muscles, they'll forget to work their back muscles. All of these things then create imbalances. Yeah, so you'll see that some guys that are in the gym and they've been doing that kind of thing, their chests get overdeveloped and get tight, and they end up quite kind of, you know, when you see them walking down the road and they look a bit like a gorilla, yeah, because they've got overdeveloped here and they haven't developed anything on the back to pull that back out and keep everything in place where it should be. So that can then lead to lots of injuries, pains, ailments and whatnot through muscle imbalances caused by overtraining certain muscles, undertraining or neglecting other muscles. So really important when you're doing strength training to make sure that you are working out muscle groups in pairs. So all muscles have a kind of equal and opposite action. So our biceps allow us to lift up, our triceps allow us to go back down again. So it's important to work both of those muscles in unison. Yeah, our chest muscles allow us to push things, our back muscles allow us to pull things. So always doing a mixture of push and pull exercises to work both muscles. Another negative can be, particularly if you're working out from home, is it can be quite a short period of time if you're exercising regularly before you outgrow your equipment. So you might think when you start, I'll get some dumbbells. What will I get? I'll get some 3 kg dumbbells, and you might find within a matter of months that actually it's quite easy now. I need some 5 kg dumbbells, and a few months later some 7 kg dumbbells. If you're working out properly or working out effectively, you should be jumping up in weights every couple of months really, at least. And then it can start to get quite expensive. So once you start going over that kind of 5 kg dumbbell range, they start to go up in price quite dramatically. And with lockdown, that has been accentuated even more as gyms have been shut and home equipment has become more prevalent. So that can provide obstacles. A good way around that is to use resistance bands, because it's quite easy to adjust the resistance by lengthening or shortening. You've seen with the bands that you've got that we're using in our sessions, in our group sessions, just by holding that band a little bit shorter in, it becomes a bit stiffer to pull out. If we hold it near the ends, it's a little bit easier. So you can adjust it a little bit in that way. So those are the cons really. It's more to do with injuries and sort of physical risks, but they're quite easy to manage, and if you're not sure, then that's where someone like me or a personal trainer can help you out and make sure that you're staying safe. So one other thing that people think, particularly ladies, is we think it's going to make us really big and muscly and bulky and we're going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that's not what we want. I dare you to walk into any gym and walk up to any muscly guy and say that you're scared that you're accidentally going to build muscle, and he will probably knock you out. Yeah, you cannot accidentally get muscly. It takes a lot of hard work. Your nutrition needs to be bang on point. You need to be in the gym a couple of hours a day, every day at least. Yeah, these people are making it an entire lifestyle. They're not doing one session a week for an hour. Yeah, women tend not to pack on the muscle anyway. We don't have the testosterone for it, so it doesn't happen anyway. you need to eat a lot of protein, because if we're building muscle, we need building blocks. It doesn't just happen by magic. So we need the protein to go into the body to be used to build muscle. So you will know if you're not eating the right kind of things. It's not just going to accidentally happen anyway. So yeah, don't worry about that. If you don't believe me, have a look at on YouTube at some videos for like female powerlifting world records and things like that, or look at things like you know, with female contestants on things like Ninja Warrior and these kind of things. They're very, very strong, and a lot of them look considerably smaller than me. And we can talk about me. I do quite a lot of strength training. I lift some very heavy weights. I lift almost my body weight on things like deadlifts. I don't think I look particularly big and bulky. And that's because, in part, my nutrition isn't on point. I eat well, but I don't eat fantastically well, and certainly not for the goal of being lean and toned and cut or ripped or whatever you want to call it. So let's talk about pros then. So as we've discussed with pretty much all of our other exercises, any exercise really is going to reduce your risks of things like heart disease, stroke, diabetes, high blood pressure, things like that. It will help to regulate your insulin, so managing symptoms of diabetes, things like that as well. It will strengthen your bones. Strength exercises, resistance exercises, weight bearing exercises are the best thing for building bone density and reducing your risk of osteoporosis, which we've talked about in other videos, which is where your density of your bones lessens. You have more holes in the bones and therefore more risks of breaks and fractures and so on. As I've alluded to, it builds muscle, so although we're not going to turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger overnight as women, it will build muscle, and it will help you to maintain the muscle that you've got. As we age, as we go through menopause, we start to suffer with a thing called sarcopenia, which is where we have muscle loss, muscle wastage, muscle shrinkage, which is why you see little old ladies looking very, very frail. So the more that we can do to A, hang on to the muscle we've got, and B, build a little bit more on top, is going to be beneficial to us. Why? Because it's going to reduce our risk of falls. It's going to maintain our strength. One of the primary reasons that elderly people, particularly women, go into care homes is because they're not strong enough to get themselves out of a chair. Yeah, so they can't, with their hands, they can't. You see the first signs of that, where you see people kind of rocking backwards and forwards, and they have to build up a bit of momentum to then launch themselves out of a chair. But there becomes a point where even that isn't working for them. Once you can't get yourself out of a chair, quality of life starts to go down quite dramatically. And if you can't get yourself up to go to the toilet, you can't get yourself up to cook your own meal, then you've got problems and you're going to need some help. Obviously, following on to that, if the muscles start to go, then you're going to be more prone to falls. And if you fall and you don't have the strength to get yourself back up, again, one of the leading reasons why people end up in care homes. So maintaining and building your strength as you age, as you go through menopause, is really, really important. It will obviously help you to prevent injuries as well. So although we talked about the risk of injuries through weight training, the risk of injuries through being weak are far greater. Okay, so I would definitely take the risks of weight training over not doing it, for sure. What else? So talking of strength, we're talking about how it can help to keep you out of care homes, but it is also directly linked with mortality rates. and in particular grip strength. But if we think about grip strength, it's probably not people just working on their grip, that's an indication of overall strength. But grip strength in studies has been shown to be in direct correlation with your risk of death. So good strength, good grip strength, less likelihood of dying overall. So that's quite important. It will help with muscular endurance. So as well as building the strength, it builds endurance, which is a measure of how long your muscles can perform an action for. So if I was looking at bicep strength, that would be how much weight I can lift one single time. But if I'm looking at muscular endurance, it might be less weight. It might be something like I'm carrying my shopping bags, and can I hold on to those shopping bags long enough to get them home or to get them to the car at the other end of the car park without having to pop them back down and pick them back up again. So that's muscular endurance. Okay. Fat loss. So we think a lot about cardiovascular exercise for fat loss, but actually strength training is very, very good for fat loss. We've talked in another video, the HIIT and Tabata video, we talked about EPOC, which is your excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. So this is the amount of oxygen your muscles are using after you've finished doing the exercise. And strength training gives us this EPOC effect, whereby long after we've finished our workout, our muscles are still consuming oxygen. They're still working harder than they were before we started the workout. Therefore, they're burning more calories. So we get that EPOC effect for several hours beyond the actual workout. On top of that, the more muscle mass that we have on our bodies anyway, the more calories, the more energy we are going to burn. Okay, so this is for the same reason that you see bodybuilders, or if you look at The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and ask him what he eats in a day, he'll probably tell you stories about eating 4 chickens and 36 eggs and God knows what else, because muscle mass takes a lot of energy to maintain. Okay, so it needs a lot of food coming in. So what that means to us is if we've got the muscle mass there, we don't have to eat 5 chickens and 36 eggs, but it does mean that we can eat a little bit more when we want to, because the muscles will help to take on that fuel, use that fuel for what we want it to be used for, rather than storing it on fat for a later date, which never actually happens. So great. Not as great as cardio in the actual event. So for your 1 hour workout, for example, it's probably not burning as much calories, as much energy as your cardiovascular exercise. But in the long haul, the EPOC effect and the effect of having that muscle mass on the body is going to give you greater fat loss results overall. What else? It's been shown to improve your ability to learn. So strength, muscle mass has been shown to improve your ability to learn. So that's quite good if you're doing studies and things like that, but also good as we age, to keep cognitive function alive and well, stave off risks from dementia, Alzheimer's, those kind of diseases. It's been shown to improve your sleep, so that's another good benefit. As with most forms of exercise, we get those endorphins released, so it will boost your mood, make you feel happier, make you feel better, more relaxed. It will increase your energy levels, and also with strength training, weightlifting, it boosts your confidence. So once you start to do it, there's absolutely nothing better feeling than lifting up a really heavy weight and thinking, yeah, I'm really strong, and that carries over not just from the physical sense of I feel strong because I can lift stuff, but it actually then starts to make you feel strong mentally. It makes you feel more able to deal with things, because you've got this strength now within you. So it's great for boosting confidence. So types of weightlifting, strength training, resistance training, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing really. It's putting the muscles under load for a length of time that causes them to causes slight damage to the muscles, which then build and repair and come back a little bit stronger for next time. So we can do it at home. Talked at the beginning about problems that could occur from doing it at home, which is outgrowing your equipment. It depends what kind of equipment you buy. You don't need any equipment. I can give you a great 1 hour workout using no equipment at all, just body weight. So it could be doing things like squats, lunges, those kind of things, press ups, all of those kind of things, no equipment needed. If you're using equipment, you can use dumbbells, kettlebells. Resistance bands are cheap, they're easy, you can throw them in the drawer, throw them under the bed, and they will give you a great workout. If you're going to a gym, then you can use all of those same equipments in the gym. You also get the added benefit probably of much heavier weights, more variety of equipment, and you'll have usually some machines there as well, which can be helpful if you're not quite sure about form. Usually with the machines there's a little picture there that shows you how to use them, and it will help you to keep the correct form. So rather than doing a squat and you're not sure, should my back be here, what should my hands doing, there might be a machine where you're laying down and then you're pushing away with the legs. So your legs are getting the same benefit of that movement, but you're in a fixed position where there's less risk of injury and less risk of getting it wrong. You might prefer to do things like boot camps or circuit training. Typically boot camps are outdoors, although there are some indoor ones now, although COVID has made that a little bit borderline. Some sort of community centres, gyms, things like that will do circuit training either with or without gym equipment, and depending on their setup. So they can be a good idea, and they will normally give you a full body workout. Certainly if on one occasion they didn't, if you're going repeatedly, it'll probably be something slightly different on the next one, and it will include the muscles that you missed on the first one. So regular participation would definitely deal with that. And then there's things like calisthenics, parkour and things like that. So this is, you might have seen these equipment over the parks now starting to spring up. So this is where they're maybe using a bar and they're twisting around and doing pull-ups on it and things like that. That's the kind of calisthenics, maybe dip bars, doing dips and the legs are coming up and all of those kind of things. And just using your body weight against gravity is a great way to build strength, and much harder than it looks. Parkour is, or otherwise known as free running, is when they're kind of jumping over things. Naughty people are doing it on buildings and jumping from building to building and rolling over walls and things like this. But there are more structured ways to do it. So there are facilities now where you can do that. You know, you could build your own things depending on your resources, so little boxes and steps and things that you can jump and hop and roll over. So all of those things are great for building strength and muscular endurance. So to summarise, would I recommend it? Absolutely. Every single person should be doing strength training, okay, and that includes people with injuries. Get clearance obviously from your medical professionals first, but even with injuries there will be some things that you can do to work on your strength training. So if it's a back injury, you might still be able to use your arms or your legs in a seated position or something like that. But definitely get medical clearance first. But everybody should be strength training. Women should definitely be strength training. Women approaching or going through or having surpassed menopause should definitely be strength training, okay? So if I was going to recommend any kind of exercises out of all of the ones I've recommended or talked about so far, definitely strength training, okay? Absolute must. Good.